Hey beautiful people, my name's Kristen. Thank you for stopping by my channel. I have a tag. I was tagged by Sandy at Mrs. Reads a Lot for an original tag, Let's Get Outside with Books. And I do like outside and appreciate outside. Most of the hobbies outside I'm not very good at, so we'll see how this goes. I will leave the prompts below and then tag at the end if you would like to follow along. Number 1 says, Into Thin Air, what is one of your favorite books about or set in the outdoors? So I know I'll probably talk about, when you have your top favorite books, you talk about them a lot. So I'll probably talk about it, but I have to give it up for one of my very top favorite books of all time, The Boys in the Boat, because this is the story of the crew for Oregon State that went to the Olympics and just their grueling schedule on the water as they were preparing for that adventure. A lot of documentary style dialogue about the people, about the friendships, about all of the beautiful relationships and the struggles and the obstacles that came along with that. I was so inspired by this book that I actually used half of my vacation time that year and took crew lessons, and I was horrible at it, y'all. I felt really bad for the people that were ever assigned to the boat with me, but I tried really, really hard and I really enjoyed it. I'm really glad I did it, and I have a whole deeper appreciation for The Boys in the Boat, and this was just such a good read. And it's not a huge long book. I think it's under 400 pages, so well worth the read, particularly if you like outdoors or sports type of inspirational stories. Number 2, Winterdance. This is the story of Gary Paulsen running the Iditarod for the first time, even though he isn't particularly good at it. Do you have a hobby or skill that you keep attempting, even though you're not particularly good at it? So, yes. First off, I did actually spend some time living in Anchorage, and I'm very fond of the Iditarod, and I would never attempt the Iditarod. So hats off to anybody who, has ever tried that. So, but I do have a hobby that I am particularly a little bit bad at, but I keep trying and I keep moving forward, and then I have moved. So I just, ironically, yesterday before I started getting ready to film this, found a class and signed up for it next week. And that's the Ariel silk hammocks. So if you've ever been to the Renaissance Fair and the girls climb up those beautiful long flowing silks up into the trees or whatnot, I'm sitting here debate. I will put a little clip. I will embarrass myself, but try to be gracious. If you're going to be judgy, just fast forward that right past that. But I'll let you see what I'm talking about, and just note the question was something that you keep trying even though you're not good at. Then this leg?
Keep pulling onto it, yep, and then turn belly up. Keep taking the other leg. Doesn't have to be straight.
This one doesn't have to be straight?
Nope. It's helpful. Ooh, that's what I mean by that drop, but it's pretty.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, moving on. Number 3, Wild. This is the story of Cheryl Strayed hiking the PCT after the death of her mother. Recommend a book where the central theme is dealing with grief. So I do, 2 or 3 books popped into my head when I read this question, and I debated what to choose, but I think I'm going to go with my most obvious answer, and that's C.S. Lewis's A Grief Observed. This is his account of losing his wife, and just a faithful, theologically sound, thoughtful man, just pondering and reflecting and sitting in grief, not trying to explain it, not trying to minimize it or maximize it, but just observing it, right? And I think it is helpful for those times that we do go through grief, or understanding particularly maybe somebody else and where they're at and their mindset of it. So really small book, I think a very important work. And maybe if you're not, this is obviously written from a Christian perspective, but I think there's some observations here even if you aren't Christian, but knowing that that's the perspective that it comes from. So number 4, Into the Wild, follows Chris McCandless, who travels to the remote Alaska and unfortunately passes away in the wilderness. Does the idea of living off the grid or away from society appeal to you? Not at all. But having said that, if we were going to have like the apocalypse, like, Dune and Waterworld and destruction of all mankind and be off the grid, I definitely would feel up to rising to the challenge of trying that. I wouldn't want to deal with the chaos of a lawless society. I would want to take my family and go into the hills and press my luck with the wilderness instead. So, and as long as I had my husband, I'd probably survive. If it was just me, probably not. Let's see, A Walk in the Woods, the story of Bill, Bryson, and Katz hiking the Appalachian Trail. What is a book with a really interesting friendship? So I think this is another book I've mentioned before because I'm not a big romance reader. I don't normally gel with many romances, but I really appreciated this friends to lovers trope here that was in People We Meet between Poppy and Alex and Poppy. And so it is drawn out and a little kind of unbelievable in some ways, but it was just really, I enjoyed it way more than I should have. I just really, really thought it was well written. The dialogue felt authentic to me and made me laugh. And this is a fantastic beach read, easy read. If you're, struggling with romances like I sometimes do, that's the one I'm going to go with. So I'm going to go ahead and lift it up here in this tag. Number 6, Adrift, a story of Steve Callahan's time lost at sea. Do you like water? I like to bathe and shower and be clean. I like to watch the rain or, the weather from a shelter. I like to swim safely in a pool or ocean. But I have to say, I'm not a boat person. Even though I just said boys in the boat and crewing, I'm actually not so much a boat person. I was a travel agent for 4 years, and I got a really, really good deal on a cruise. And so we went on a cruise from New York City to Bermuda. And there was a hurricane coming through that was supposed to get to the Carolinas. So, but we wanted to go ahead and get offshore because they can't gamble or serve alcohol until they're undocked because of the laws and licensing. So the captain said, we're just going to head straight out east, so we'll be offshore and we'll get to Bermuda a half day late, but that way we can go ahead and start our cruise and everybody gets some credits towards some cocktails or whatever. So we all thought this was great. And the hurricane ended up going through Massachusetts. So we went through literally the eye of the hurricane in a cruise ship on the open ocean. And the year was 1996. Titanic had just come out, y'all. I'm not kidding. You can't make this stuff up. And the ship was rocking and rolling, and you would literally be thrown into a wall, and then it would sway, and you would literally be off the floor and thrown into the other wall. And if you went to the dining hall, they could not put anything on the tables because the ship was rolling so hard. They would hand you your silverware and menu and then bring you food. because this went on for a good almost 3 days that it took us to get all the way through. And the captain did not sleep the entire 3 days. And it was Norwegian cruise line. So he'd come on and go, "Do not worry about the ship. It has seen worse weather." I'm like, this ship, I'm a travel agent. This ship is less than 5 years old. It has not seen worse weather than a hurricane. But I appreciated just the man's spirit and just got us through, and it was brilliant. But I mean, I really thought there was a heavy chance that we were going to perish. It broke in the doors. They deadbolted us with chains inside the ship. Not that anybody would go out, but maybe they would. But the waves crashed it in the top level and flooded it, and they had to evacuate them to the lower levels. I was on the 3rd level, and I still had a window. It wasn't a porthole window, it was a full window. And so it would be like water, 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 sky, 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 water, water. It was harrowing, y'all. I was literally like, this may be the end of my life. And anyway, that's my answer to say I am not fond of boats, or I have zero desire to go on another cruise, unless maybe a river cruise. I might consider that. But yeah, that was a longer answer than I intended. Sorry, not sorry. Are we on 7? Number 7, Hatchet. A fictional story of a young boy who is in a plane crash while traveling to Alaska and has to survive with only a hatchet. What is your favorite survival story? So I think I have 2 or 3 that also came to mind for this, but I think I'm going to pick The Emerald Mile. This is a nonfiction documentary about the fastest run through the river of the Grand Canyon, but these 3 men that were on it did not realize that the dam had broken and was about to break farther to really, really disastrous results upstream. And so they were in more peril than they even knew, but it was definitely a survival story. It was also spent a lot of time going into the history of the dams and the kind of activists and environmental and man versus nature versus how do we have the rights to rivers and how does the rights to rivers flow. So it's way more than just the story of their survival, and I can see how maybe if you just wanted the survival story, this may be a little much or daunting, but you could always skim those parts. It's a really, really well done, because a lot of time, I mean, who starts out going, I want to read a book about the history of dams? But actually it was very good and fascinating, and I learned a lot. So Emerald Mile is my answer to that. Number 8, A Perfect Storm is a story of fishermen that were lost at sea during a huge storm. Do you like stormy weather? See answer above. Not being in it, I don't like it at all. But if it's a really nice thunderstorm or rainstorm and I'm undercover watching it, like, you know, in a safe spot, I really, really like that. So tag some friends. I would like to tag Yavanna at Serene Sloth, and I would like to tag Ellie at Bibbidi Boppity Books, and I'd like to tag my friend Emma at Always in Stock. These are 3 channels that I have been following for a while that I just really, really appreciate these younger women's thoughts and reflections, and they read some things that I have read or have been interested in, and some things that are completely new to me, and just they have excellent voices. And if you have not heard of them or checked them out, please check out their links below, because they are awesome, and it's always a fun thing to discover new channels. So that is my Get Outdoors, embarrassing, get to know me a little bit more than you wanted to tag, and hope that you have an awesome day and happy reading. Take care, y'all.